Welcome into another edition of Eagle Squad Podcast. We're going to break it all down for you when it comes to Howie's Haul and the 2025 NFL Draft. Did the Philadelphia Eagles really get three starters? My name is Mark Farzett, and we're all going to break it down for you. Right, Harry?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Harry Mays, Harry Mays TU. You can follow me on all my social media. And I've been doing the Eagles postcast last season and looking forward to another big year of Eagles football.
Yep, and I'm Louie DiBiase. I host the daily Locked On Eagles podcast Monday through Friday. Excited to get some draft takes off.
Let's get it started right here on Locked On Eagle Squad Podcast.
Fly, Eagles, fly. It's the Eagles Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Philadelphia Eagles every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the city of brotherly love. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Eagles Squad show starting now.
I like that.
That's great.
Squat up, bro. I'm going to start hashtagging that shit.
Squat up.
Squat up.
Squat. I got to get the bed music. I got to get the bed music from that intro. And now that's the first intro. This is I think it's like 5 or 6 shows that we've done already.
Yeah.
Fellas, I need the bed music. Because I feel like, I don't know if you guys watch Parks and Rec, but Duke Silver on the saxophone. Like, I need to be like playing the music and then just be like, and on the drums, Harry Mays.
That felt like an 80s night show kind of intro.
Right.
That blew my mind.
Right?
Like the Larry Sanders show.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, Louie DiBiase. Oh, my God. Oh, this is fun. We're all having fun here. You know who was having fun? How's this for a segue? I'm a professional. Howie Roseman over the course of the draft, gentlemen. 10 draft picks. That wasn't supposed to happen going into the NFL draft. We didn't expect that. I thought the one real lockdown guarantee you were going to see from the Eagles they're going to get a tight end. They did not get a tight end. I thought you were going to get a defensive end. It turns out you get a guy that can kind of split out there and also play linebacker. I didn't see the Eagles taking a linebacker in the first round, so that's edge rusher. They did that, obviously, in Jihaad Campbell. We've talked about that. But they go, and Harry, you know this, it kind of broke my heart a little bit in the second round when they ended up taking a safety and Drew Mukuba. Call him Drew, by the way. Let's get that out of the way. I still am in the camp of Justin Simmons, but they seem to really like Drew Makuba at that spot. And then the other name we're going to talk about today, as well as the whole list, but as well as whether or not the Eagles actually got 3 starters in this draft, Ty Robinson being taken in the 4th round as Eagles traded out of the 3rd round entirely. These are a couple of guys that you're looking at. One in Campbell, absolutely you're thinking of as, if not a starter, then starter snaps. This is the guy you're looking at right now in Makuba as a starter to compete with Sidney Brown and also to go out there and compete with Tristan McCullum potentially. And then bring in a guy that they hope can fill the shoes of a Milton Williams in Ty Robinson. We'll go through the entire draft today. We'll also talk about why it's a good day to be a tight end at the NFL level and what it could mean for Dallas Goedert and his future with the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll break that down throughout the show today. First off, gentlemen, Harry, let me ask you this right out of the gate. When it comes to the Eagles draft, what grade, it's obligatory, we have to do this, what grade would you give the Eagles draft?
Well, as far as grades, I would probably say we're looking at maybe like a B-. I'm thinking, because I'm left a little bit empty for the, one of the big reason that you mentioned in the open there, the no tight end. I was really, we talked about this last week, and what I was really hoping to get was a tight end. I was looking at the kid from LSU, went very early in the 2nd round, probably not doable from the Eagles and perspective where they stood, and I get all that. But then there was a couple other guys that went off the board later in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and you mentioned they traded out completely of the 3rd round. So I was a little bit empty. I still have a lot of question marks as to really where they're going with that position. And I know, we'll discuss that today and at length probably over the next couple of weeks until, more things pan out here. But I'd go B- and feel pretty good about that.
Louie, before you go, I just want to say I am right there at the B- range. I'm right there with C+ and B-. The reason I don't believe in C's is because I was a C student, and this is a pass-or-fail world in the NFL, all right?
Yeah.
So I'm right there with Harry when I go to about B- right there. So, Louie, you're going to have to break the tie either way. How would you grade the Eagles draft?
I'll go a little bit higher. I'll give it a B+. And it's because for me, they took care of two things I really wanted early on. I wanted a positionless Swiss Army knife kind of player on defense that could both rush the passer and affect the quarterback in the passing game through coverage. I think they took care of that with Jihaad Campbell in round 1, and I was not happy with the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade. So I really, as much as I like Sidney Brown's traits, did not want to go into the season with him as your only answer. Now, Mark, like you said, you could have brought in Justin Simmons, but I'm glad they addressed in round 2 safety with Andrew Makuba, a very similar player, I think, to CJ Gardner-Johnson. Why I won't give it an A or higher, though, is on day 3, I love the traits they went for. They really bet on upside and athleticism. They took a lot of dart throws, took 8 picks on day 3, but a lot of them I do feel like have lower floors. Only having 2 picks in the first 3 rounds and both guys having some weaknesses that could lead to a higher bust potential than past years. I think that's why it's a little bit lower, but they took care of 2 things that I really wanted, so I'm a little bit happier with it.
Yeah, the reason I go even into the B range and not the C range is not just for conversation. It's also because I think if you're gonna come away from any draft, you could have 10 picks, but get one guy that's a stud and be like, well, you can't say that draft sucked because at least you got,
right.
So that's the way I always try to look at it. Is look at it, look to the future of the Philadelphia Eagles and what this draft could really, the fruit it could bear. And I look at Jihaad Campbell as that guy. It could be that home run guy. If you get Drew Mukuba to go into all the potential, to rise to the potential that the Eagles see for him, then you obviously have 2 guys out here that are solid starters. One thing I definitely don't like doing, and I feel like people do this to justify a draft right out of the gate, is, well, you drafted him and he's a starter, so there you go, it worked out. Like, that's not the measuring stick. So I also try not to look at it and say, well, he's only a 4th-round pick when you talk about Ty Robinson. I try to look at it as, oh, so what if he's only the last pick in the 2nd round, Drew Mukuba? Mm-hmm. I try to look at skill set. And Louie, you were talking about this a second ago when it came to Makuba. A lot of things that he brings to the table is the number one thing really is versatility. Of all the things that he's able to do, people look at all the things he could do well, and he's got the mind for it as far as being a safety goes. He's got the physicality for it when it comes to being a safety, how he plays. He has the ability to go after the football and be a ball hawk, and when you have 5 interceptions, that certainly lends itself to that. And I know this has been a kiss of death for some other Eagles players that have been drafted, but he met Brian Dawkins. He knows Brian Dawkins from his time at Clemson. So that's all things that I know people will look at, but when it comes to Makuba, it's the size. It's the 5'10", 5'11". He said he likes to model his game after Budda Baker, Brian Branch as well. Do you see him in that same type of category? Because I think that is putting, just because of size, I don't make that association. I look in terms of style of play, and that's where I still think he might be falling short.
Yeah, I think style of play, he wants to be that kind of player. You can see on tape he plays physical. Like, he crashes downhill, very similar to Sidney Brown. There's that one play where he took the Georgia quarterback's helmet off because he lowers his shoulder and comes downhill like at 1,000 miles an hour. But the problem is his size doesn't really equate with his style that he wants to play like.
He'll get busted up.
Yeah, I think he's at, a lot of times his playing weight's at under 190 pounds. Yeah. So if he's going to play like that in the league, like Harry said, he's going to get busted up. So I'm curious how they'll use him. I think he's going to be more used as a deep cover 2 high safety, allow him to utilize the ball hawking skills, the range and speed more so than the physicality. I like that he's willing to get dirty, get into the run game, because you have to do that as a safety at the next level. But I think that's why I said, too, there's some more bust potential with this class, is because the size is a concern with Makuba. With Campbell, it's like, will he master one of these positions, or is he just kind of an Isaiah Simmons light, you know what I mean, from the next level? So that's why it's a B+ for me, because there is still some weaknesses here for these guys that they're key questions we have to have answered.
When you look at
I like
Makuba,
about
you go ahead, Eric.
Go ahead. Well, the thing I like about Makuba,
the beauty of the digital world, man. The beauty of the digital world. I was just going to set you up to talk about Makuba anyway, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. The thing I like about him, and there's various concerns, and you guys, detailed them very well, is the fact that he transferred up, in my view, going from Clemson to Texas. He went into the SEC and had a terrific year. And, Mark, you said ball hawk. That's one of the notes that I wrote down, because you get 5 interceptions, and just the way he played in some of those big games that Texas played in down the stretch in the in the playoff and so forth. He played big. and he's got no fear. He's a guy that he'll take on anybody. I think you can put him really in any kind of coverage, and he's going to figure it out. The size concerns me. He's sort of a little bit reckless and likes to really, mix it up. And I think you start mixing it up, with bigger players, you're going to get busted up in that league unless he gets a little bit stronger and puts on a little bit more weight. But he traded up, or he transferred up and played big. So that leaves me thinking that this could end up being a really nice selection.
It also shows me that he's fearless.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this a number of times already throughout the number of shows that we've done, but I always look at the mentality of a player. You try to draw what you can from them to understand their mentality, the way they think. It's the exact reason why teams do interviews with players. Right. What makes this guy tick, that kind of thing. When I like that mentality too, transfer up, to a team like Texas. That shows that you're not scared of the moment.
No.
That also shows that you're going to go out there and you're going to show people what you could do. Like you look at a guy like McCord, for instance, a quarterback they drafted out of Syracuse by way of Ohio State. He wanted to make sure he was a starter. Syracuse was a spot for him. He did everything you're supposed to do if you're going to be transferring schools, and he did that. Good for him. But when you challenge yourself in your college career to play at a higher level, and then you go out and you actually do that again to the tune of 5 interceptions and just also raising your overall level of play, not just with the stats, but the way you play, I think that says a lot about a player. So I hear from professional athletes all the time, former Eagles, Harry, I'm sure you've heard this, Louie as well, but they always say Philly ain't for everybody. Mm-hmm. So, and then what they mean by that is you got to have mental toughness to not just be able to play the game well, but when you have moments of weakness, you can't let the city, the fan base, the media, whoever it might be, get to you in the moment. And when you challenge yourself, first off, the background of this guy, I love the idea that I knew he came over from Zimbabwe. I didn't realize he was 9 years old. I thought he was like a baby when he came over. So he's got memories of being there. He talked about his press conference about going through struggles with his family, how life was hard and all that, and then coming to America and then discovering the sport of football, how his parents were like, wait, you need a helmet and pads to play this game? Why are you playing this game? And then he and his brother ended up accelerating. They played great. But when you talk about a player's mentality, going through that early life struggle, challenging himself at the college football level, and then rising to the occasion of still being a second-round pick and going into the Eagles secondary, as I think will be the expected starter right now. If you're talking about who's on the roster right now, I think he's the guy that's going to be the number one guy next to Reed Blankenship. Harry, I'll start with you. Do you think he fits himself into that starter role?
I do. I think you could sort of pencil him in there right now, and I think you mentioned a lot of great things about his upbringing, and I think that's the kind of stuff that you figure out in the interview process, and what the kid went through, and he really appreciates where he is. You know what I mean? And it's like he's taking full advantage of his gifts, and I think that he's going to come in here thinking that, hey, this is my spot. I'm going to play opposite Blankenship, and away we go. So I do agree. I do agree that this guy's a starter.
Yeah. And Mark, I would say that I agree, because when you look at Sidney Brown has a lot of good traits, and I think the Eagles do want to see him have a bigger role in 2025 versus 2024. But they have not drafted a safety in the first 2 rounds before this since 2011. They drafted Jaquan Jarrett out of Temple. Yeah. Before that, it was Nate Allen in 2010.
He was way overdrafted. He was a 4th-round pick.
We know
we don't need to talk about
I said that at the we don't talk about the dream team anymore.
I said that at the time, and all the Temple people said, "Shut up! You're dissing the Temple Owls." I'm like, "Yeah, it's the truth."
Yeah, it should have been a first rounder. Anyway,
it was a big investment. I mean, Howie Roseman doesn't draft safeties that high, right? So Vic Fangio kind of got his hand-picked player, and it's not a coincidence that he's very similar to what they liked in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson last year and also in 2022. So I think Sidney Brown will have a bigger role. I'd like to see them use more 3 safety looks this year, especially in the beginning of the season when Jihaad Campbell's still learning both positions. Nakobe Dean might be out for a little bit. So he'll have a role, Sidney Brown, but Makuba's a second-rounder's coming in as the favorite to start for sure.
Mm-hmm. Coming up, we're going to look at a couple other players, obviously the Eagles drafted, where they exactly fit in. The thing is, I'll say this right out of the gate, though, with Jihaad Campbell, and also for the record, everyone, it is Jihaad Campbell. The emphasis is really on the second syllable as opposed to the first.
It's not Jihad.
Correct. Thank you.
Right.
I've heard people do it. I'm like, is he going to correct him? I hope he corrects him. He's a South Jersey kid. You know what I'm saying? You should know. But anyway, I just want to make sure we have that established. Jihaad Campbell, it's hard to say whether or not a starter, because most likely he is going to be playing in the edge spot. Mm-hmm. So will he get starter snaps? Will he be playing about 70%? We'll get into that conversation. We'll also get into the conversation when it comes to Ty Robinson. How many snaps would you expect for him in the middle of the Eagles' defensive line? And will he be the guy right out of the gate to take over for a guy like Milton Williams? Can you at least get the production he got from Milton Williams 2 years ago from a fourth-round pick like Ty Robinson? We'll talk about that when we return. Also, as I said later in the show, we're going to get into what a day it is to be a tight end in the NFL and what that means for Dallas Goedert when it comes to the new contract that George Kittle signed with the San Francisco 49ers. That's when we return here on Locked On Eagles Squad on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Back after this. Oh, you got to talk about the amazing people at Monarch Money. You know Monarch Money? You like Monarch Money? You ever check your bank account and go, where did the money go? Because I used to have money, and now I don't have money. Where's the money? Monarch Money is your personal CFO. It is fantastic. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center that allows you to track your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place so you can stop managing your money and you could start building wealth. How about that? Surprising insights you get from Monarch Money. Started using Monarch Money. And when I started using it, I realized just how much money I was spending on food deliveries. Those always jump off the charts and catch you a little bit by surprise. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you could just use Monarch Money to check your finances, track your spending, and set goals to stay on the same page without all the stress. Monarch Money takes care of you in that regard. So take control of your finances and use Monarch Money. That's Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Welcome back, Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Those that are the loyal followers of Locked On Eagles YouTube channel know Louie DiBiase very well with all the great content that he gives you guys daily. That's Harry Mays. I'm Mark Farzetta. We're breaking down the Eagles draft. We're going to be doing 2 shows like this each and every week leading up to the Eagles season. Can't be more excited about that. We have labeled already a starter in what you see from Drew Mukuba, Eagles new safety. Jihaad Campbell. We all know that looking at this draft, he at least appears to be, which would also lead itself to conventional wisdom, that your first round pick is going to be your top performer. When you talk about snap count, Louie, do you see Jihaad Campbell being a Haason Reddick type that's playing 70 to 75 to 77 maybe % of the snaps on the Eagles defense? Or do you see him being a guy that the Eagles bring along gradually? Can we expect starter type snaps from him in his rookie season?
Yeah, I want to say eventually this year, there will come a point, like second half of the season. I don't want to put him in a box and say he's going to be a full-time starter on the edge opposite Nolan Smith. He's the inside linebacker next to Zach Bond. Like, I don't want to put a label on him for either thing from a position standpoint, but from a snap count perspective, yes, I do think there will come a point this year where he's getting starter snaps. But I truly do believe they're going to use him all over the formation. So it's going to be on the edge. It's going to be at inside linebacker. He's going to move around. But I do think at some point they'll eventually get him there. But I think to start the offseason, I think Vic Fangio is going to have him say, okay, you're on the edge. You're going to focus here. You're at inside linebacker. I'm not sure which one yet, but I do think Vic's going to want to have him focus on one position, not to overload his plate. And then the more the season goes on, they'll start to feed him more.
Harry, same thing.
70 to 75% of the snaps. Yeah, I would agree with that at some point. It's not going to start the season. I agree with Louie. Do I know when that's going to happen? No. Do I know exactly what, Vic Fangio has in store for him to start him out on? Probably something that he was much more comfortable with doing in college, play, closer to his position in college, and then to figure out, hey, there's other places I can put him on. I can put him on a tight end. I can, I can move him around. I can use him in this setup to get more after the pass, after the passer, those kinds of things. It's going to be a Vic's toy. And I think this guy, 6'3", 235 pounds, he gets through that labrum issue by the middle of the summer, and I think he'll be ready to go come training camp. But 70 to 75% of the snaps is a lot, and I don't expect that, for at least the first month and a half probably of the season.
The thing that about edge rusher with him, and we talked a lot last week about the dominant force. We talked Friday about the dominant force that Jihaad Campbell sees himself as.
Right. I
think he can absolutely be that, but the Eagles also, when it comes to the edge rusher position, they have talent at that spot right now. When we talk, you already mentioned Nolan Smith, and I think that's the best guy to look at right now, Harry, as their number one guy. Then you also look at Jalen Hunt, who is emerging, certainly is that, had a decent rookie season. Then you also talk about adding guys like Josh Uche. Then you also talk about adding Azeez Ojulari. And now you have added to the mix Jihaad Campbell, who, to me, really just I think the fact that the Eagles got him at 31, I feel like the storyline is going to be very similar to what it was with Jalen Carter. How did the NFL allow the Eagles to get Jalen Carter? How did the Eagles get this done? I feel like that's going to be the narrative midway through the season where other teams are going to be looking at the NFL saying the same thing.
Uh-oh. So you're saying, I can see this now. So you're saying there was a collusion effect where Andy Reid allowed Howie Roseman to move up that one slot when he had 3 or 4 other teams on the phone, and I'm going to hold out for more. I need more. No, Howie, you want to move up a slot? Go ahead. Take your Bama guy. We're giving it to you. I can see it all now. This is terrific.
Yeah. Jeffrey Lurie probably called Andy and said, I'll give you a ride on my yacht. Okay.
Right.
I'll produce a movie made about your life later on. Okay. If you just let us move up above. That's it. We'll give you a 5th round pick too. I mean, come on. Let's talk sense here. You know what I mean? I think you're onto something, Harry.
After that Super Bowl when the Chiefs the loss they suffered, I wouldn't be doing the Eagles any favors.
You know what? You underestimate the true power of friendship, Louie.
Mm-hmm. That's
underestimate the true power of friendship. Sorry. So we're looking at starter snaps, we'll call it, when it comes to Jihaad Campbell. All right. This is where we get into the weeds here. 4th round, they go with the defensive tackle. My ask going into this draft was get a guy that could play next to Jalen Carter. That's not going to be Jordan Davis. All right. We'll see what happens to Jordan Davis and his 5th-year option and all that coming up with a contract extension and all, if that does happen. The knock on Jordan Davis is that he doesn't play on passing downs. He only plays on running downs. The thing with Ty Robinson is he can play both. Mm-hmm. He's got pretty good numbers either way at Nebraska. Also, when it comes to getting into the backfield, you're talking about a guy who's got 15 tackles for loss, most from a Nebraska player since Ndamukong Suh in 2009. Yeah. This is where I try to forget what round he was drafted in and just go off the old eye test, gentlemen. He's an athlete. Big dude, can move bodies, but it does. Every time I look at him and I watch highlights of him or read about him, I go, oh, this sounds good. But why do you think it was the 4th round? Why did the Eagles decide to value this position in the 4th round, Harry?
Why did they value it in the 4th round? Yeah. Well, I thought they should have valued it, primarily coming into the draft. The fact that it took to the 4th round to get to it is a question. But this guy can play. I mean, Ty Robinson he's 6'6", over 310, and he's a freak athlete at that size, okay? Forget about that he went to Nebraska and he didn't go to the SEC. This guy can play football, and he's a disruptor. That's the way I describe him. He disrupts things. He's gonna implode the pocket. He's gonna push centers back into running backs. He's gonna make havoc. And with he and Jalen Carter in there, I'm really looking forward to what this looks like. I've got some people out at Nebraska in that program, and they describe him. He runs like a deer, they said. And basically, he's going to be there to go after Jaden Daniels. That's the text that I got.
Wow.
Okay, so take it for what it's worth.
Scoop on the show.
Take it for what it's worth.
Well, Cornhusker.
Well, my old Temple people are out there. Okay, I got some people.
Oh, that's right. Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
I'm embarrassed. I didn't realize. Of course.
Runs like a deer and will be a Jaden Daniels. Where is it? Jaden Daniels. He'll stalk Jaden Daniels. That's the text.
Love that. No, he tested incredibly.
Yeah.
I think the reason he fell farther than I thought he would is I think the arm length. I do think, he's tall, powerful, but does have shorter arms for an interior rusher. But I love that they brought in somebody of this style because, like Mark said, Jordan Davis, I mean, he had a sack in the NFC title. He had a sack in the Super Bowl. Maybe Clint Hurtt's going to get him to take that next step this year. 5th-year option, contract kind of season. But you can't bank on that. So I'm glad they brought somebody in that had 7 sacks last year. I don't think we're giving enough love, though, to Moro Ijoma. The Eagles really trusted him a lot last year to be that guy rotating in with Milton Williams in obvious pass rushing situations next to Jalen Carter. He was out there at the end of that Rams game in the divisional round when Carter got that sack on 3rd down. Ijoma was next to him. He was top 15 in pass rush win rate. I think when you add Ijoma and Ty Robinson now to that rotation, I think it definitely does help, alleviate some of the loss of Milton Williams. I don't think both of those guys combined are going to replicate what Milton did last year. He was the best one-on-one pass rusher on the interior from an efficiency standpoint in the entire NFL, and a lot of that's because of Jalen Carter.
Right.
So you're not going to replace that, but you had to add somebody else with that style into this rotation. I think Robinson can be that guy.
Yeah. You guys talk about, Harry, especially talking about the speed and being a guy that's going to stalk Jaden Daniels. Here's what's really amazing. The fastest defensive tackle at the combine this year. And usually you look at that and be like, okay, defensive tackle's fast. Okay, fine. But then you think about the division now that he's going into here at Philadelphia, the quarterbacks he's going to be trying to chase down, whether it's Russell Wilson or Dart, for instance, in New York. And then you also look at James Daniels, for instance. This is a situation where you're going to need people to get after it. And I always think about this, and this goes back, a million years. But you talk about even just Troy Aikman coming into the league. You talk about guys like Phil Simms and coming into the league, all that. The thing they always talked about when it came to the gangrene Eagles defense was Jerome Brown and Reggie White just keep, and I'm not comparing the two, I'm just saying speed matters in these cases. Right. They get to the NFL and they're like, damn, these defensive tackles can outrun me.
Yeah.
Like you thought they were fast.
They were faster than Phil Simms. With all due respect to Phil.
Most of them were.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
but it definitely comes into play here, and it definitely matters, especially when the other side of it is Jordan Davis isn't stalking anybody. Jordan Davis, in a very rare occasion, will be able to run down somebody with everything going right and the right push.
He's clogging things up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's clogging things up. Yeah. Exactly. Ty Robinson is a guy that can not only get after the quarterback or get into the backfield for a TFL, but he can also run stunts. And when you're not running blitzes, and Fangio doesn't blitz, as we all know, and we knew that was the deal going into it, this guy can run TEs, he can run ETs, he can be the looper on these plays, he can cut in. Like, he's very versatile in that regard. And there's that word again, versatility. It's going to come up many times as you look at the first 3 picks the Eagles made. But he's somebody that the Eagles, I feel, can put on their offense or put on their defensive line and wreak havoc on offensive line because offensive lines in the NFL, because he has that toolbox that is just overflowing right now. The question is, again, pushing around men, not pushing around college kids, and being able to do that at a high level.
Well, go back and watch. I think he can do. Go back and try to watch some of what he did against Ohio State, because that's an offensive line that puts guys routinely. Practically the entire line goes to the NFL, and see what he did. He caused a lot of disruption and wreaked a lot of havoc on Ohio State.
I think that was a common theme of the Eagles draft. You don't want to ever be hyper-focused on one trait, because that's in 2020 when you take Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, because you want to add speed over and speed no matter what, right? But I do think when you look at pretty much every pick the Eagles had, especially on defense, and how he talked about it in one of his press conferences after the draft, he talked about needing speed, range, length on all 3 levels of the defense because of how explosive weapons are now, quarterbacks, even offensive linemen. So you could definitely see in pretty much every pick that Howie had on both sides of the ball that was really a focus. All these guys tested incredibly.
How about the fact of the the focus on the defense for the first couple of rounds? I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like, you always kind of expected them. They'll pick some sort of offensive lineman in the 3rd or 4th round. No, they waited until
first
5th,
5
6th,
picks were all defense.
Yeah, they were all defense.
I mean, they lost so much when you look at it, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. While that was going on, I know the common theme with a lot of people have been in Howie we trust and Howie we trust. The other thing that really goes into this, fellas, is Vic Fangio. This guy is given the blessing to these picks. Do any of us doubt that?
I think more than that. I mean, Howie Roseman, his last 4 picks in the first 2 rounds were corner, linebacker, safety. He never does that. So Vic Fangio's fingerprints are all over this.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you go through I trust Howie to make the right pick. Like, I didn't like trading back. I didn't like not picking in the third round. But again, when a guy's put together the deepest roster maybe ever to win a Super Bowl, like they did in 2017, 2018, when they've been back 5 years later and then won again, 7 years after their first one, you kind of trust the guy putting it together,
Right.
Now, on top of that, gentlemen, you're also talking about Vic Fangio saying, oh, yeah, no, I can use this guy. Oh, yeah, no, look at this guy. Oh, yeah, no, this guy has the tools that I need on this defense. So those are some great minds meeting to make these picks. And you mentioned it, Louie, you're talking about going through your first 5 picks without taking an offensive player.
Yeah.
That's damn near unheard of, especially when it comes to the Eagles.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But when you have an offense that's the most expensive in football and the defense is where, you're going cheap, at least for now, right? Because that's just the life cycle of what your roster looks like right now. You have to replenish that depth. You lost 7 key players this offseason, whether they were starters or role players on that side of the ball. So I think it makes sense that your first 5 picks were on defense. But eventually, I think in the next few drafts, you'll start to see it balance out again where it's more offense and defense. Just as the offense gets older, the defense gets closer to their prime, and they start getting those next big contracts. I think you'll see more of a balance than you've seen like the last 4 or 5 draft classes.
I want to get one comment here, Harry. I think it was your line that Jeremy's laughing at here. Andy Reid passing it.
Well, if he's going after a prime rib, there's no doubt about it.
You got to choose at the end of that race, maybe.
I love that after all these years, Andy Reid still leads into still really leans into the I'm fat. It's not a secret.
I was going to say, he embraces the brand.
He owns it.
So.
Yeah, he owns it.
And really does. It's the way I feel about a cheeseburger, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And how about him wearing like the Hawaiian looking shirt? They had him on in the Kansas City War Room, and he had one of those shirts on with the palm trees on it. It's so great.
I think that's all that man owns in the closet is Chiefs pullovers and Hawaiian
Tommy
shirts.
Bahama stuff.
Yep, that's it.
I don't know who told him that's the look for him, but
right.
Good for them,
hey, man.
Because that's become his thing. That's become his thing. Like, okay, it'll be Vince Lombardi in a fedora, okay?
Yeah,
and it's going to be
and a trench
Andy
coat.
Reid.
And a trench coat.
If they ever build a statue
fog.
of him outside of Arrowhead, he's going to be in a Hawaiian shirt with a cheeseburger in his hand, and then a playbook in the other hand. That's going to be the move.
Yeah, and if you look closely, you squint, you see that play chart is a menu.
Yep,
it's a menu to like Oklahoma Joe's or Gates Barbecue or whatever it might be. Let me get one more comment in here. Andrew, what I wonder is, will Huff or Kenyon Green contribute anything this year? Huff was a high-end free agent. Yeah, they did add a lot of offensive linemen, that's for sure, in the offseason. Green was a first-round pick, but both almost looked washed. That's a good question. I still think it's Tyler Steen's job to lose. Agreed. As far as the offensive line goes, filling in that right guard spot. Are we all on the same page there?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
I do wonder, though, with Huff, because I was thinking about that earlier this morning. He's still under contract, and if they gave him a fair chance to beat out Ojulari or Uche for snaps, I think he has as good a chance as those guys to bounce back. But I think last year is just too much to come back from, even being a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. I don't know if Huff's going to end up on this roster.
I'm with you. That was for as much praise as we've given Howie Roseman, that was a blind spot. That was a blind spot. I heard
you can't hit them all out of the park.
Phil Jasner, the late great Sixers writer, put it once: every coach has a blind spot. And I think every GM has a blind spot too, and that was certainly a blind spot there.
For sure.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at the rest of this draft, the rest of the way it fell through, including, gentlemen, there was one thing that I haven't heard anybody talk about for months. Even during the season, it went away for a while because, we were busy just watching the Eagles be awesome, which was great. But there was one huge glaring problem, and I know I'm not the only person that had this problem, and the Eagles might have solved that problem late in this draft. We'll talk about that when we return. We'll also get into that tight end situation when it comes to Dallas Goedert, the future there, and how George Kittle has made that decision for the Eagles. Well, I think maybe a little easier, but maybe a little harder for other teams that are actually going to end up paying Dallas Goedert. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Back after this. You guys enjoying all FanDuel has to offer? I hope so, especially when we talk about the NBA playoffs going on, NHL playoffs, everything. You got baseball underway as well. Take advantage of all they're offering right now at FanDuel, giving new customers an incredible way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. $250 in bonus bets. What? Yeah, you heard me right. Love how FanDuel makes it so much easier when it comes to picking your favorite team to win that night, when it comes to parlays to put together, all that, player props as well. From three-pointers to goals to assists to steals to home runs, all of it's right there on FanDuel. So many ways to bet on your favorite player with player props. Plus, after the game tips off, faces off, first pitch, whatever, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big bucks. That's what you can take advantage with FanDuel. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com to claim your $250 in bonus bets. Once again, new customers bet $5, win that bet, and get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins with FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com for your $250 in bonus bets today to get started at FanDuel.com. Call me crazy, gentlemen. Call me crazy.
You're crazy.
Every time, not sometimes, every time, Cooper DeJean fielded a punt, I got agita, okay? I think other people call that anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm more in the agita type. I hated it. And the idea that the Eagles, in this draft, at least got a guy in the 5th round, and Marc Williams, by the way, great name, got a guy that could return punts and did it at a plus 10 yards per return clip, I absolutely love. It was one of the things that started to get pushed away. And I know people talked about it. I don't know where you guys were with it, but it drove me crazy. I absolutely hated it. They got a guy that can at least do that. Yeah, is he a corner? He's a corner. But the fact that he's got the punt return experience makes me think maybe the Eagles wedge him into that spot so Cooper DeJean, a valued starter, doesn't have to do it, Harry.
That's great insight by you, because I wasn't even thinking that way. Be honest with you, that was the one draft pick that I kind of just sort of glossed over in their whole all their selections. I was, even more caught up and interested in some of the offensive linemen that they added, the centers and the tackles, simply because I'm just so, enamored with what Stoutland can do with any of these guys that it intrigues me. And that was the one pick that sort of just, okay, well, we'll see. Maybe he makes the team, maybe not. What is he? But, the fact that you're concerned about DeJean is warranted, because I think about that all the time when you put valued players. But I used to worry about Brian Westbrook when he'd field punts.
Oh, sure.
Back in the
Deshaun
day.
Jackson.
Yeah,
back in the day,
Jackson. Yeah. Well, I'd worried about Deshaun Jackson 24/7 about many different things. But yeah, your point is well taken. So yeah, great insight by you, because I didn't even pick up on that.
That's just it jumped to mind when it came to the returning punts. Now here's the deal. Like Deshaun Jackson, Lou, you just mentioned it as well. Like Deshaun Jackson, hey, in case of emergency, break glass. All right, you're down 27 points or whatever it is to the Giants in the years 2010, then go ahead and put Deshaun Jackson back there. You're down this year. You need Cooper DeJean to try to break one. You put him back there. But the fact that you have a valued starter, I'll call him that as a nickel, but a valued starter, doing anything on special teams, especially in the return game on punts, forget about it. No interest in doing that whatsoever. Do you see, Louie, a guy like Marc Williams spelling Cooper DeJean for doing that in the upcoming season?
Yeah, he could, and I'm just glad they have more options. I think last year they were doing that out of necessity, not out of preference, because Britton Covey got injured, and he was their go-to punt returner. I don't think they want Cooper DeJean, especially this year. He's going to have an even bigger role than he did in 2024. So I don't think they want him to do that. Like you said, maybe in situational punt return situations, the fourth quarter of a close game, you put Coop back there. But I do think Mark McWilliams, I always want to call him Mark McMillan. My brain's just going back to the 90s.
I understand why,
A similar position, right? A slot corner. But yeah, between him and you also signed Avery Williams back in March, who's kind of a running back receiver, hybrid player that's also return kicks. You have some options back there. Yeah, I think you definitely hope that one of those guys gives you a reason to not need DeJean. We'll see if those guys kind of earn the job. But yeah, I think you definitely don't want DeJean returning punts this year if you don't have to.
I want to jump into a couple more of these draft pick names before we move on anywhere else. As somebody is at my door. Sorry about that. Let's see. Louie, do you know? I can't say this guy's name for the life of me. Their linebacker they took in the 5th round. Sayal Mondon?
Smile Mondon.
Smael, I think. It's
Smile.
Smael.
I've heard it saying smile.
Please, I like names. I like names that have a little stank on them. You know what I mean? I like that like, the little accent.
I've been calling him Smael, but we'll see. I think I'm adding too much emphasis on the E.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope that's it. But two-time national champion out of Georgia. That's something the Eagles, as the joke has gone, they have to make this pick each and every time, and they have made the pick out of Georgia. Another Georgia player, very versatile, inside-outside type player, 3-year starter. At Georgia. Initial reaction, Harry, when you saw another Georgia Bulldog coming to the Eagles defense?
Well, it's kind of crazy because I'm thinking, wow, Georgia starter, it waited till this long for him to be taken off the board. I was kind of shocked. Like, what's wrong with him? You know, what happened to him? Like, where's the wart? Because usually these guys that start that much for Kirby Smart and play on all those big games in January are taken off the board by now. But hey, maybe he slipped through the cracks. 6'2", 225. Special teams, give him a start. Give him a start to to figure his way around the roster and see. Maybe you get something out of him 2 or 3 years, and maybe he's not even on a team. So once you get to the 5th round, it's kind of a toss up to me.
Right, and I think that's what Mondon is, right? I mean, he has A-plus traits. I mean, the speed and length is – I think that's a lot – Howie Roseman said it. He had 8 picks. If you come away with 2 to 3 contributors, whether it's starters, role players, special teamers, that's probably a win for day 3. Because like you said, Harry, I mean, day 3 of the NFL draft is so unpredictable. So I like just taking – even last year, I don't know if it's going to work out with Johnny Wilson, but I like taking the 6'7" wide receiver. It's a rare trait. And I think Mondon gets sideline to sideline really fast. I think he is good in coverage against tight ends. And it's a Georgia Bulldog, so I think it's worth a shot. And you got to think, too, their linebacker depth, they just need bodies back there. Heading into the season, before the draft, healthy inside linebackers were Zach Bond and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and I believe that's it. I mean, Ben Van Sumeren's been playing more fullback than linebacker. So they just had to get guys back there, and they need special teams help, too. That's a focus that people don't really talk about enough either.
From now on, Smael. As far as I'm concerned.
All
right. Drew Kendall, offensive lineman, interior, can play guard, can play center, the son of a 13-year NFL veteran, 5th-round pick, 168 overall, 6'4", 308. I like to say with all these offensive linemen we're about to rattle off here in a second, you go into the NovaCare complex, gentlemen, flesh and blood. Then you meet Jeff Stoutland, and you leave as a bronze statue. So nothing but good things when it comes to Kendall, what he can do for this offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, the transformation, is real with Stoutland. I mean, 6'4", 308. They say he moves really well. We've heard that before. That's what the Eagles love in their centers. They love guys that can get out there and run and get into the secondary defenders and move down the field. So his dad played football in the NFL. I mean, this guy comes from good genes. And Boston College, they've churned out offensive linemen over the decades. Tons of them, and they all play hard. And this is a guy that I'm intrigued by. You can never have enough good interior linemen, just like you can't have enough good versatile tackles. And I thought that they took care of some options that they can give their vaunted offensive line coach to see if he can mold some of these guys into swing starters and good. Good depth players.
Yeah, I think when you look at Drew Kendall, he's actually my 3rd favorite pick the Eagles made in this draft. Wow. 6'4", like you said, over 300 pounds. He's got the size and power. But when you look at his tape, I mean, Harry alluded to it. He moves like an Eagles offensive lineman. Yeah. You can tell they have a type with centers and with interior linemen. When he gets that second level, when he's pulling on run plays, I'm not saying he looks like Jason Kelsey or Cam Jurgens out there, but he has that kind of mobility. I wouldn't be surprised. We're talking about like 3 starters that the Eagles could get from this draft. I think you've got Jihaad Campbell. You've got Drew Mukuba. I wouldn't be surprised if he beat out Steen or Kenyon Green. Like I'm not predicting it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all, considering I think the floor at guard, it's not that hard to beat right now. I don't think like they have a obvious Brandon Brooks, Isaac Seumalo, a Mekhi Becton there, where a rookie day 3 guy could surprise and win the job.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll keep that in mind, Louie, as the season approaches. I won't forget about that. And now let's get to the quarterback controversy as the Eagles draft a quarterback in the 6th round. Kyle McCord. All right, look. I watched the Holiday Bowl. I think it was Washington State they took on. I know I don't have a life.
You were the one.
I was the one that watched it. It was on. It was one of I didn't like set out to watch it.
I know.
Was like, now I got to do my scouting report.
I used to love the Holiday Bowl back in the day when BYU used to always play in it. Like back in the 80s and 90s, it was always a show. Like it was like 50-something to 48. It was always an
I love when there's
show.
a school that just owns one of those random bowls and they're just in it every single year. That's the best.
Yeah, send the Mormons to San Diego.
Like Syracuse always used to be in the Pinstripe Bowl, I feel like, for years. Like Cuse, that's their bowl. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mark.
You got me there. No, that's beautiful. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. It was a blowout. Or not a blowout. It was a shootout. This Holiday Bowl as well. But McCord put on a clinic. Like I remember, hearing a couple of things about him at Ohio State, staring down receivers and all that. And he does do that, which lends himself to, again, the 6th round pick and not a 1st or 2nd rounder. But doesn't have a problem as that game went on, turning his back to the defense, play action, read option plays, can definitely make all the throws. It's just that he does telegraph from time to time. Here's why I love taking quarterbacks, and it's the same reason I think any NFL team takes a quarterback. You could buy extremely low, and you could sell extremely. You put a little bit of good film together, and this is Louie. You were calling me out for this when it came to the possibility of drafting Shedeur Sanders. Hey, just put a little good film on him. You get a 1st round pick in a year or two. You just take a little bit of good film. Same thing if you're talking about a guy taken in the 6th round, right? You just put a little good film together, and next thing you know, you can flip him for some picks. So, Louie, I look at this pick and I say, all right, have him compete in training camp, and maybe you get something more than a 6th round pick later for him.
Yeah, I mean, you just did it with Kenny Pickett. I think it's worth a shot, and the Eagles love to do this on day 3. Sometimes it doesn't work, i.e. Clayton Thorson. Sometimes it does with Tanner McKee. So I think, and, they brought in Dorian Thompson-Robinson from that trade in the Kenny Pickett trade. He's got that mobility you might like for a depth piece. But I think McCord could probably beat out DTR. I would almost say he's the favorite to be QB3 right now.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised. Plus, he also met Chip Kelly and liked him. So already he's out as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
All right. So we had the guy, the safety, met Brian Dawkins back in the day at some point when he was at Clemson. So this is he was also roommates with Trot Jr. at Clemson, so he also knows the Axeman, not just.
Didn't we do this with Kavon Wallace though, and that didn't work out?
That's exactly why it soured for me. I know people look.
I was like, I feel like I've heard this narrative before.
This is Brian Dawkins.
Yeah.
This is kind of becoming the Eagles' version of, he rode in the elevator with Sean McVay, so therefore he must have gleaned some sort of knowledge.
New play caller.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love it. No, but McCord, man, I tell you, it's a nice story if he makes the team and becomes the 3rd string guy. St. Joe prep guy. He had the big year at Ohio State, and then, they realized that they were going to bring somebody in over top. He didn't want to have to compete with Will Howard, although I kind of think he's a better quarterback, really, than Will Howard, too, when it comes down to just straight passing. He had 4,780 yards at Syracuse. They turned this kid loose. Now, he threw 12 picks, which I think, was like a high in the NCAA with 34 touchdowns. So, I mean, the guy can sling it. 6'3", 200 pounds. He's got some size. I agree with Louie. I think this guy will end up being the 3rd string quarterback.
I would not be surprised if that's the case, in all honesty. Then, just real quick, gentlemen, so we get our takes on every one of these players. We just mentioned McCord, the 6th round pick. Let's keep going with the 6 rounders here. Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams, both big dudes, 6'6", 6'7", 320 pounds, the both of them. These are guys that are also offensive linemen, obviously, and these are guys that are going to be under Jeff Stoutland. Now, unlike the I met Brian Dawkins thing, that's not a ringing endorsement for the fact that you're going to be awesome, but these guys are going to meet Jeff Stoutland. They've already met Jeff Stoutland, so they're going to be awesome. Any concern or any takes from these 6th-round offensive linemen?
Yeah, I think they're both just balls of clay that Jeff Stoutland can mold. You need some tackle depth.
That.
Yeah, I will say I did hear from draft experts, quote unquote, Cameron Williams, if he went back into the draft next year, could have been like a 1st, 2nd round pick kind of player. So maybe he's a kind of steal. And then Antoine Powell-Ryland, the pass rusher, with your last pick. I think it's kind of cool that your last pick in a 10-pick draft, the guy had 16 sacks last year. I think that's good value for their final pick.
Not fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I agree. I like the balls of clay reference there, Louie, with these two.
It's like the Mailata pick. Just get them in the door and see if they hit.
I mean, they're both tackles. Obviously, you mentioned about Williams. He came out a year early. He could have gone back in and made moved himself up into the top couple of rounds. 6'7", 323 for Hinton, a huge guy. Played at Stanford for a couple years. Played both tackles, left tackle and right tackle. Has experience at both, so that's always good. When you're the swing guy, to be able to have them say, hey, you can play both sides. Cameron Williams, I think he's from Duncanville, Texas. Was a big high school pick and a big recruit in Texas. I'll take my chances on the best offensive line coach making something out of these guys. If one of them hits, in the next 2 or 3 years, it's a gold rush.
Duncanville, they have the best Whataburger in Texas, I hear.
Dude.
Of all the Whataburgers, they have the best. All right, when we come back, we'll finally get to it. The future of Dallas Goedert and how this George Kittle deal affects the future of Dallas Goedert here in Philadelphia. That's when we come back real quick. This is a real quick stop set, so I'm just going to hit this, and then we'll be right back. Bang, bang, boom. Just like that. Welcome back, everybody. I know you missed us. George Kittle today, gentlemen. I know you saw it. It's insane. $76 million contract extension includes $40 million guaranteed over a 4-year extension. That is originally reported by Ian Rappaport at ESPN. What a deal this is. $19.1 million per year. Leapfrogs Kittle over Trey McBride at $19 million, so he gets $100,000 more. Good for him. It's a good day. It's a good day to be a tight end in the NFL, fellas. First off, your reaction to the deal, Harry, and how much do you think this affects Dallas Goedert?
Well, I think it's going to affect Dallas Goedert big time, but it's going to be for a different team. I don't think it's going to be the Eagles that are going to end up paying him. Good for Dallas Goedert. You got to be doing somersaults right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're his camp and his agent.
I think when you look at the Trey McBride contract extension that happened a few weeks ago, that didn't really impact Goddard for me because McBride's a player in his 3rd or 4th year.
He's young.
Yeah, heading into his prime, getting $19 million a year. I don't think that impacts it. But George Kittle's 32 years old. Mm-hmm. He's had an injury history, and he gets this deal. Dallas Goedert's coming off a really strong playoff run. Somebody's going to give him that contract. The Eagles' pursuit of getting him to take a Josh Sweat pay cut, I think with this deal now that's basically dead. So the only way he's back is if you're willing to give him an extension, or you're willing to at least guarantee the money that he's getting this year. I think after this deal, it's probably at the end. It just stinks because they didn't, like you guys said earlier, they didn't get a single tight end in this class. No. And I just am not comfortable with Grant Calcaterra being the top tight end heading into the year. I wish they could make this work, but that deal I think it gives Goddard a lot of leverage.
They did trade out of that 5th round. One of their picks when they traded out of 5th round to the Chargers, and the Chargers took a tight end. They took Gadsden
right,
from Syracuse. Yes.
Who I liked. So,
yeah, he's got big size, that kid. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you this. The thing that we were talking about last week, and really every time we talked about Dallas Goedert, is whether or not he's played his last year as a Philadelphia Eagle. Going into the draft, I was saying, I was one of the many, that he has played his last game as an Eagle. The last game he played with the Eagles is a Super Bowl that he happened to win. Good for him. Now, Zach Ertz had a very similar situation here where, he didn't show up to the optional, the OTAs or anything like that. Showed up late to training camp. Was expected, but didn't show up until later, and then played a couple games and then was traded to the Cardinals. So with that in mind, do you think the Eagles are looking at Dallas Goedert as a guy that has already played his last game as an Eagle, or do you think he plays a couple of games like Zach Ertz and then gets dealt? Harry, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, with Calcaterra really as the only option, they got to do something. Between now and whenever that is, I'm not comfortable with what they've got behind
Neither
them.
am I.
mean, I like Calcaterra, but I need more. I need a little depth to that position, and right now they don't have it. So I really don't know what the plan is. I mean, maybe they make a deal and bring in somebody. I'd have to look at rosters to figure out maybe some guy that might shake loose. To just sort of buy them some time until, next year when they can draft somebody. But no, I still think that this is the last year. I mean, he will not be here for the entire year.
All right, let me ask you this. Has he played his last game as an Eagle?
I'll say yes.
Okay, you're still on the yes. I've flipped.
Yes.
I'm a flip-flopper.
You're flipping?
I'm a flip-flopper. I'm flipping.
Well, who you got coming in?
Games.
Who you got coming in?
Oh, no, wait. Who do I have coming in after he gets traded? Oh, no, they're going to sign somebody like, oh, that guy? But it's not going to be anything, unfortunately.
Because I have no clue.
Away. Yeah. Louie, where are you at?
I think they have to bring him back. I mean, I don't know. You could trade for like a Michael Mayer. I don't know. Cole Kmet maybe from the Bears. Now they drafted Colson Loveland.
They drafted Loveland.
Noah Fant from Seattle. But these options just don't move the needle for me. Like Dallas Goedert,
Kmet.
I know.
You don't like Kmet?
Yeah, he might be the best case scenario. Luke Musgrave from the Packers, maybe a former second-round pick. It's a very similar flyer type of move that they've been continuing to make. But Dallas Goedert, I know he misses 4 to 7 games every year, and you have to be okay with that. And, he's 30 years old. So is he worth the extension that Kittle or McBride got? Probably not. But he's never missed a playoff game. He's one of 5 tight ends ever to have 2 postseason runs of 16-plus receptions. He was huge in that Super Bowl run. They can't play hardball with this. Like I think I would be willing to fully guarantee his contract this year and at least like sweeten the pot so he is willing to come back like Ertz was in 2021. This time around, you don't have another Goddard behind him, so you can do whatever you want with Zach Ertz. Like Goddard has all the power, and the Eagles, it feels like they're acting like they have all the power. They must be really comfortable losing him. I'm not there at all.
Mm-hmm. Now I think he is one of the most talented tight ends in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is that injuries have played a big factor in the last 4 years of his career. And huge, right. Now, the other idea here is that Johnny Wilson is still here, and he is a huge target in the red zone, as we all know. We're talking about a 6'6" type wide receiver here.
Make him a tight end.
The question was, when he was drafted, would you move him to tight end? He started out in the wide receiver room. Still, say that again.
He's a good blocker. He blocked really
block
well
as well.
Year. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's a little bit outside the box, but it also got me thinking, are they thinking about potentially moving him to the tight end position? Is that one of the reasons they're so confident about this? Because, I mean, look, Howie Roseman's always going to say, I'm not talking about play. He wouldn't even talk about picking up Jordan Davis, 5th-year option. He wasn't even talking about that.
Right.
So now now you have the potential of moving a wide receiver, a big target wide receiver into the tight end spot. They won't talk about the Dallas Goedert move. The only thing that's come out really about Dallas Goedert not being here in Philadelphia is that the Eagles have given him permission to seek a trade. So far, not one rumor of anyone really trying to get him. There's been, the Giants, maybe Jordan Rana on ESPN, the Giants kicked the tires on Dallas Goedert. But really, that's it. And they did that with the Eagles, not Dallas Goedert. So where are we going here? You're not drafting. You didn't draft anybody. Yeah, that's come and gone. Undrafted free agents we could obviously talk about. But right now, what's the direction? Because that's not just some position the Eagles can just say, ho-hum, we're great with Grant Calcaterra. You need some options when it comes to the tight end position. And I thought it was asked about when Johnny Wilson became an Eagle. And now we're a year removed from that after he's played at the NFL level already at the wide receiver spot. Do they think about shifting him into the tight end position?
That's interesting. That's a very interesting aspect.
I mean, last year was the first time that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith missed significant, or, they missed multiple games each. And this year, if you don't have Dallas Goedert and one of those guys goes down, I don't love their depth at wide receiver or tight end. And John Dotson, maybe you believe he can take a step up this year. You spent a 3rd-round pick on him last year, but he's only on a 1-year deal. They declined his 5th-year option. So you're really banking on Devontae and A.J., staying healthy all year. And I would like to have more depth for Jalen Hurts. So I hope they can find a way to make it work. Mark, like you said, maybe the market's not there for him, and they do know they have the leverage, and that's why they're dug in the sand, if you will. But I really don't know how this is going to get resolved. I'm curious to follow it.
They did bring in that LSU kid, the wide receiver that has yet to he disappointed in his first year or two.
Oh, Terrace Marshall.
Terrace, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
All
right. When it comes I was just thinking of it, the wide receiver. I'm blanking on it now, but all right. Either way, gentlemen.
Who, Wilson?
It wasn't Wilson.
Anaya Smith.
Oh, that was the name I was thinking of. Yeah. Well, there you go.
None of these names move the needle for me, but yeah.
Enough said already. All right, gentlemen, we got another Eagles Squad podcast coming up later in the week. We look forward to doing that. We're going to break down even more from this NFL draft, including what can happen with Jalen Hurts if this offense does take a hit talent-wise in the loss of Dallas Goedert. We'll look more into who can step up when it comes to the undrafted free agents. We'll also go through the Eagles' offseason schedule. We'll get to that as well as we do Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on Thursday. That's Harry Mays. That's Louie DiBiase. Make sure you guys are following Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Louie's got you covered throughout the week when it comes to daily Eagles content on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Harry, what's the next thing you're doing, brother?
Well, let's all bring it full circle. We started the show with grades, and you asked me about grades. And I just want to remind the people that C's get degrees.
That's right.
That's all you need to know. Don't feel bad about your C's, Mark.
Hey, not only did I repeat kindergarten, but I went on to live up to that reputation of being a C student. So there you go, kids. There you go.
That's all right. I'm with you. I have a bachelor's degree right next to me that all came from C's and B's, baby.
There you
So
go.
it gets the job done.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that sounds like you did your job. All right,
it's like somebody used to say something about a running back. If you need 3 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. If you need 5 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. That was me as a student.
Fantastic. Hey, a blast as always, gentlemen. A blast as always. We'll be back with you guys on Thursday. Don't miss it. Like and subscribe to Locked On Eagles podcast here and Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Hey, for you guys that are also baseball fans, I'll be doing Locked On Phillies postcast tonight on the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel following their first game of this 3-game series against the Washington Nationals that only got beat 19-5 by the Mets. So, Phillies, it's your turn. How about that? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe to everything here with Locked On Sports. Make sure you guys are checking out Louie Locked On Eagles YouTube channel as well. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. See you Thursday. See you then. Bye.